Wow, ladies and gentlemen, absolutely diabolical. A couple things that I want to talk about today in the sport of boxing. JARON Boots Ennis having and being forced to vacate his WBA Junior Middleweight Championship title. And also, the IBF complying with the rules. Let's be real first. This is how it's actually written when it comes to the rotation line that we're about to witness with Alexander Usyk. Ladies and gentlemen, it's breaking news that the IBF has announced, even though Alexander Usyk is fighting against Rico Verhoeven, who's only had one professional boxing fight in his career, is not ranked within boxing. Not even top 15 in any of the sanctioning bodies, but is being allowed to fight against Alexander Usyk. The IBF has announced that they will keep Usyk as their heavyweight champion and will not strip him of his title due to the fact that he's fighting a goddamn kickboxer. If the WBC and the WBA, if they weren't involved, just like how we seen with Jaya Pataya, fight for the Zuffa Cruiserweight title, the Ring Magazine title, and the IBF title, they would have not allowed this to happen. But if they are complying with the rotation line that they have set within the sanctioning bodies, as they say, we will keep Usyk as our heavyweight champion, but we'll eventually mandate our fighter. Currently, there is no number 1 ranked, number 2 ranked fighter in the heavyweight division. You got Richard Torres Jr., who's going up against Frank Sanchez on the Pyramid of Giza. Rico Verhoeven versus Alexander Usyk undercard. It's a title eliminator, ladies and gentlemen. But they're complying with the rotation line and will allow Usyk to fight Rico Verhoeven, keep his title, then allow the WBC to mandate their fight against a G Cabiao. Then from that day forward, give 180 days. 180 days. Half a year. Until they're able to mandate their own fighter from the IBF rankings. But if the WBA, which they will, mandate their fighter to eventually fight against, if Alexander Usyk is still the champion, say if he beats a G Cabiao, or if a G Cabiao's the champion, he will gain the WBA mandatory as his mandatory. But they will allow the WBA to set their fight up, and then from that date forward, give another 180 days until finally it's their turn in rotation. Ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't know, the WBC comes first, then the WBA, followed by the IBF. You got a rotation line here going, and you see here, these are the reasons. Yeah, sometimes this can change. Yeah, sometimes it gets a little nasty in the political world of boxing. But this is what the IBF wants to do. Now, it sucks. I'm not going to lie, it sucks. For either Richard Torres Jr. or Frank Sanchez. You got to sit for a whole goddamn year. 180 days. And then another 180 days plus training camp. My goodness, the IBF argues that they're not hurting nobody in this situation. Like I said, there is no current mandated IBF fighter. They don't have nobody mandated to fight against Alexander Usyk. Matter of fact, was it Daniel Dubois The last IBF mandatory. You're talking about Daniel Dubois, who beats Derek Chisora, is the IBF interim champion of the world, then gets elevated to full world champion, beats Anthony Joshua, and is mandated to fight against Alexander Usyk, steps in the ring with Usyk, and gets knocked out. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no IBF mandatory. So the IBF is arguing that they're not hurting nobody, and they're gonna allow this to happen. Now, why is this breaking news? Because I feel like, in my opinion, the IBF is complying based off of what the WBC is gonna do, what the WBA is gonna do. The WBA also currently does not have a mandatory, like a mandated fight. Moses Atama isn't mandated to fight against Alexander Usyk as we currently speak, but eventually will be, unless something otherwise happens. But the WBA will get their shot, and then the IBF will eventually get their shot. And dudes gotta sit around and wait around. And that absolutely sucks, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know what you guys think on that. Now, what do I think about JARON Boots Ennis being forced to vacate his WBA interim junior middleweight title? Of course, if he didn't vacate it, the WBA wouldn't have allowed him to win the full world title, even though he's fighting in a unification fight against Xander Zayas. Based off of rules, they forced JARON Boots Ennis to vacate his bout. And at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, instead of going hard, instead of crapping on them, look it. If JARON Boots Ennis beats Xander Zayas, guess what? He loses his interim title. He's the full world champion. He's got both of the titles. Screw that other title. If JARON Boots Ennis loses to Xander Zayas, guess what? He loses his interim status. No matter what, the interim bout is gone. And the way I look at it, don't you gotta pay a sanctioning fee for every goddamn title that's involved in one of these fights? You don't gotta pay for that interim sanctioning fee. Get that out of the way. Who cares? June 27th, a month from now, none of that is gonna matter anymore, ladies and gentlemen. And the way interim titles work in the sport of boxing anyways, it's just bullcrap. But let me know what you guys think. This is the MMA Boxing Addict channel, bringing it to you.